Hello, I'm Marianne Borer from HIMSS, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for taking time to be here today. We have an exciting program for you, but before we get started, I want to highlight a few things so that you'll know how to participate in today's event. At the bottom of your screen are multiple application engagement tools you can use. All of these engagement tools are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your desktop space. Now, if you need technical support during today's event, click the question mark icon in the navigation menu at the bottom of your screen where you'll find answers to frequently asked questions, or you can type your questions in the Q&A widget to the right of the media player. You can use that same box to submit questions for our speakers at any time, and if we don't get to your question today, we'll follow up with you offline. Engage with today's content and let us know how you're feeling with the emoji reactions. Now, if you miss anything, don't worry. You will receive an email within 24 hours with a link to the on-demand recording when it becomes available. So now let's get started with today's program, HPE Solutions with Qumulo for Healthcare Imaging Data, powerful, efficient, and cost-effective, sponsored by Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Our speakers today are Nicholas White, Hybrid Cloud Solutions Product Manager, Healthcare and Life Sciences at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and Alessandro Della Vedova, Senior Sales Engineer at Qumulo. Welcome, Nicholas and Alessandro.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll hand over to Nicholas to begin the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Hopefully, we have some great information for you. As we're all increasingly aware, healthcare data is both a very large percentage of the global data mass and apparently one of the most rapidly growing types of data. IDC makes various predictions around this, but I think we all accept that managing healthcare data is going to be an increasing challenge going into the future. And about 80% of the global data pool is unstructured, which increases the challenge of management. And we see this data being split between the edge, the traditional data center, and increasingly in the cloud. So if we take a look at what's actually driving this data growth and what type of data it is, as I mentioned, about 80% of the global data is unstructured. And in fact, coincidentally, about 80% of the healthcare data globally is attributed to medical imaging or diagnostics. And why is this such a big percentage and why is it growing so quickly? Well, basically, one of the key answers to that is the advancement of the technology used for imaging and diagnosis. So we've got new modalities, greater resolution imaging, and all of this is driving a greater file size and therefore a much more rapidly growing capacity of data against medical imaging. If you couple that with an increasingly aging population and therefore an increased incidence for requirement for healthcare, we have a perfect storm. And then finally add to that the prevalence of AI now utilized in the diagnostic process, which can increase copies of or just usage of that data. So we've got an increasing pool of unstructured medical imaging data. So today, what we aim to do is introduce you to the HPE and Qumulo solutions for this challenge. We're going to focus on three key factors or categories of information. That which we believe supports and aids your efficient delivery of care, the key and primary objective, obviously. But at the same time, we hope to introduce you to the fact that we are able to match whatever your current IT strategy is, but most importantly, we provide the flexibility to adhere to that strategy as it may evolve in the future. And then finally, obviously, day-to-day, the critical component of IT operations, reducing or managing the administrative overhead, controlling costs, and obviously providing a high level of reliability and resilience to the environment utilized by physicians, et cetera. So if we drill down to that, into those categories a little more detail, as far as the delivery of care is concerned, obviously the absolute primary factor is system reliability. We're all aware of the fact that in a 24/7, 365 environment such as healthcare, you cannot even contemplate the failure of access to data, any systems failure whatsoever. And on top of that, we need to ensure the efficient delivery of care and the efficient usage of the fairly costly resource, such as physicians, and maximize their time within the process. And part of that is impacted by time to first image. The time to first image for a physician to desktop there may be a small variation, but compiled over a period of time, a day, a week, whatever, it has a significant impact. And it keeps the efficiency and the attention of the physician at maximum. And then obviously allied to that, the universal access to data, whether it be in a long-term archive or any other source within the environment, it should be seamless. The physician should be able to get to that data. As far as the strategy is concerned, obviously we're highly conscious of the variations or your objectives within your cloud roadmap. And with that, the consumption model that you may wish to consume the infrastructure, and if, whether you're building a large hybrid cloud or looking to move an awful lot of data as public cloud, our objective is to allow you to consume the resources wherever and however you need to place them. Product lifecycle is obviously very important also because the data, as I tend to call it forever data. This is very long-term data. It is highly convenient to have to address a forklift upgrade or shift to platform to manage the growing capacity of data. So lifecycle management, long-term lifecycle is critical. And then obviously everybody is concerned with the overall cost of the infrastructure. And finally, as far as IT operations is concerned, our objective is obviously to provide the maximum ease of management. And with that, the reduction of an administrative overhead. We deliver everything in or offer it as a service model, whether you're managing it yourself on premises or hybrid cloud or utilizing GreenLake services, the as a service simplicity. We provide a pretty much open-ended ability to scale, which Alessandro will refer to in more detail. And our solutions are heavily integrated and well recognized within a broad ecosystem of healthcare applications and solutions. And finally, of course, we will never leave the critical component of security out of the equation. And just a quick word as to why HPE with Qumulo for healthcare. Well, jointly, we have way over 100 successful healthcare references globally. We have the recognition and the working relationship with pretty much all the major PACS vendors, tested with their VNA and so on. Qumulo themselves have a very, very prominent position within visionary, most visionary quartile. And we will address, or Alessandro will address the performance, but some pretty impressive read-write performance. And the other thing is the flexibility of being able to run on your premises as a service and in the public cloud. Alessandro, would you like to tell us a little bit more about the Qumulo component of the solution?
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for the great introduction and welcome everyone. A little bit about myself. Why am I here talking about the challenges that are typically encountered in healthcare environment? I'm 50 years old, 25 plus years of experience in IT. I've done a few things, and some of those gray hairs are due to the fact that I've worked for more than 10 years in healthcare environments. In fact, I managed the IT of two hospitals in Italy, one which specialized in oncology, the other one that specialized in cardiology, and both of them had also research departments attached. So, as you might think, yes, I had to solve a few problems, right? When you have to sustain two hospitals and research departments. So everything basically boils down to the fact that in those 10 years, I was able to eyewitness and to sustain the tremendous technology advance that we have seen in the field. For example, if we just think about what happened in terms of resolution of medical images, we were using grayscale images 2D. Now we have 3D, 4D, HD images. This, of course, allows for a great diagnostic capabilities for the doctor, better diagnosis and treatment for patients. But of course, this comes with a cost, which is the average size of the images that have increased dramatically, right? Like 1000x. The same thing is happening for other imaging modalities. For example, digital pathology, slide scanners, right? the resolution of those slides is increasing. And not to mention the fact that many hospitals nowadays, they also have DNA sequencing equipments, because if at the very beginning DNA sequencing was just used in a pure research environment, now the genome sequence is being used increasingly in the field of precision medicine or translational medicine, right, to provide a personalized treatment with patients that have genomic diseases. So back in my days at those healthcare institutions, I ended up with this kind of situation. I had to sustain cardiology PACS systems, radiology PACS systems, VNA, digital pathology storage systems, high throughput microscopes, which produce an amazing amount of very high resolution images that are used to track live cells and what they are doing, right? And also cell profiling and genomic analysis storage. So I ended up dealing with multiple storage silos, and that was not optimal from the management point of view, because I had a relatively small staff, right? And I wanted my staff to focus on something more important than just doing babysitting to storage systems. And we also had a little bit of a trouble when we had to expand those systems, and we had to decide basically if we should add HDDs to them or SSDs to them, or a little bit of both, or buy a whole new system. Now, this was cumbersome and suboptimal from the management point of view, and obviously from the cost point of view. So what HPE with Qumulo can do for you? Let's take a look at the use cases that we are addressing for our customers. The obvious top ones are PACS and VNA, right? Nick mentioned that time to first image is a critical factor. Then we also address the scientific research imaging needs of our customers. As I mentioned before, I had the pleasure to sustain very complex, high-resolution dual photon confocal microscopes. Those babies produce 30 terabytes of data per day, basically, and the experiment can run 4 days or weeks. We also address the digital pathology and computational pathology, which is the natural evolution of digital pathology and workloads. Genomic analysis, we've mentioned that before, becoming increasingly more common in hospitals. Surgical video production. Many of our joint customers are recording all the surgeries for insurance and compliance reasons, but also for educational reasons, right? To train new surgeons. And why not? We want our patients, doctors, nurses, and personnel in general to feel safe and secure. So we also address the use case of video surveillance for the hospitals. Let's take a high-level overview of what HPE and Qumulo can do for you in terms of general architecture. If we take a look at this slide, starting from the top, we see that we can address the needs we have to accommodate large-scale data on premises. That means your data center. And of course, if you have, hopefully you have a backup and disaster recovery site, that means that we can protect the data also in a secondary location. And if you are in need, as many healthcare providers are, of a tertiary copy of the data, you can have it in the cloud. Or if you want to open the door to a future hybrid cloud architecture, well, the good thing is that Qumulo also runs natively in AWS, Azure, and GCP. That means that the architecture is future-proof, truly hybrid by nature, and extremely scalable. Now, Nick mentioned that we work together with the major PACS vendor in the world that certified our joint solution with their own solutions, right? Here we have some logos, very well known, but uh, there's more, right? The screen has a limited space. We could not fill it up with logos, right? But we are ranging from top enterprise PAC systems to even open source PAC systems, because as we'll see in a little bit, we can accommodate the needs of small entities up to nation or state level healthcare provider and everything that there is in between. Talking about PACS vendors, of course, in order to be certified, you have to undergo a very rigorous testing process. And so these PACS vendors, they have engineers that every day of their life go testing storage systems. This is a quote from one of those big PACS vendors. And the engineer in the certification report wrote that he has not seen a system this efficient before, right? Because Qumulo intelligently manages the clearing of data inside the file system, reducing the complexity and cost of the system. Now, the key takeaway from this quote is it's simple because it reduces the complexity, and this is of paramount importance for any IT department. They don't want to deal with complexity. Who loves complexity? Nobody, I think. And of course, they need to keep the cost under control. Now, how do we do that? Let's take a look at the slide, starting from the right. Everyone knows what a Lego block is, right? Basically, the concept of Qumulo and HPE together is that Qumulo is a software-defined scale-out storage that is powered by the HPE platforms, hardware platforms. It starts with 4 nodes, right? And then provides services in order to address the different workloads that we see on the left. We have taken a few examples, for example, Epic blobs, digital pathology images, PACS and BNA, and why not home directories of the doctors and the scientists. We expose the traditional file protocols. That means FTP, SMB, NFS, so we support all the operating system, plus the S3 protocol. Why? Because applications are being re-engineered in order to use the S3 protocol. So it's a first-class citizen, and we support it. The entire architecture is also programmable, and the data is also accessible through REST API, meaning there is full programmability of the solution and full accessibility of the data through a REST API. Then what happens when you, for example, have acquired a new modality, or you have upgraded the modality and now the throughput of that modality has increased in terms of image sizes or time to produce those images or those results? Well, you simply add more Lego blocks. By doing this, basically, you're doing 2 things. You are expanding the overall space that you have available, but at the same time, you are increasing the overall performance of the entire system. So you will never fall short. And thinking about data in healthcare, it has to be kept for years and years, right? So you will be able, thanks to this architecture, to do in place additions of different generation hardware. That means that you will never have to migrate your data again. In fact, and I'm talking about a slightly different use case, which is a national library. We are managing data for this national library. Their job is to keep the digital cultural heritage of the country basically forever. And they've chosen HPE and Qumulo in order to do that, because we can basically store their data forever with no need to migrate, right? So that's extremely convenient. Forget about migration, which are a major headache for any departments. Time to first image. We at Qumulo monitor this health status of all the clusters that we have installed at our customers worldwide. So as you monitor your patients and you take their blood pressure, their saturation, and so on to make sure that everything is right, we do the same with our system. So we are able to collect performance data, right? And we are able to map that data on a graph. And this graph represents the time to the first image for the different PACS vendors that we see sample here. So if you do a little bit of math, 82% of all the data is being returned to the doctor in a sub-millisecond timing. That means a blazingly fast access to information, right? 100 times faster than the blink of an eye. And in this way, we save everybody's time. We save the patient time, we save the doctor time, and we ensure extremely quick access to information, no matter if it is a study that has been produced just an half an hour ago or 1 year ago. No matter what, we guarantee that you will get that image in a sub-millisecond time. Super important. But there is another critical thing about how a storage system must sustain the operations of an hospital, which is the usable space that you can address with that system. Well, with Qumulo, you can confidently use up to 100% of your space. This is again telemetry data from a real customer. Okay, this is a 5.4 petabyte Qumulo cluster serving a PACS workload that is full at 97.8% and is providing sustained performance over days. Now, this means two things. First, operational tranquility and a better investment, because with other solutions, the best practical says, hey, please don't go over 85% of used space or, fill level. With us, we say go confidently over that thresholds, right? And this is not just my words. This is, for example, a best practice of another vendor, and this is their official documentation that say, hey, please don't go over 85%, otherwise you might incur in some problems. If we think about it, HPE and Qumulo allows you also to face some unexpected events. For example, in the unfortunate case that there is a large scale event that affects your area, you will see patients being rushed into your hospital. So you have to sustain a peak, which goes well over the steady state, right, of a typical day. We enable you to sustain that peak, being able to squeeze literally up to the last megabyte of space that you have available in the system. Now I will hand back to Nick that will explain us a little bit more about the HPE hardware platform that powers Qumulo.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. Great introduction to the software side of the solution. So underpinning the Qumulo solution, the other key component in our partnership is obviously the platform. And so I'm going to give you a very quick high-level introduction to our optimal platforms for Qumulo, which are the Apollo and Electra series, 4000 series storage server hardware. So the first thing to set out on this subject is these are not just compute servers. These are the result of a long heritage within HPE of designing and building and delivering storage servers optimized to the task of running both software-defined storage such as Qumulo and serving the various data types. So we've got servers that are built for applications, and there's components of the form factor and the performance in there, and obviously more recently the addition of the AI and analytics capability. They are obviously highly configurable to the specific requirements, extremely secure. We totally understand the importance of securing any corporate or enterprise data, but within the healthcare space, it is extreme. And so you have options right down to FIPS encrypted secure drives. And the other component of the solution is that as far as deployment and management is concerned, we have an extremely intuitive interface, the common cloud-based interface that allows you to manage both the Electra and the Apollo 4000 series and other products within our portfolio. So it's a common interface and it's extremely intuitive. So you basically have the opportunity to deploy optimal hardware for the task underneath Qumulo and manage it extremely easily. So for the sake of this discussion, we're going to keep it really high level, but essentially we have the Apollo 4200 and 4510, which are options within the Apollo portfolio offering variations on the density and hybrid specification, including the NVMe drive component. And then we also have the more recent addition to the portfolio, the Electra 4120, which is a new design of hybrid storage environment with, again, the optimized NVMe layer. And a key message around these platforms is, from an investment perspective, if you invest in the Qumulo on any of these platforms type solution to address your PACS and VNA requirements, it is an optimal solution, but it is a highly relevant infrastructure to a broad spread of use cases and workloads. So you're investing in a standardized infrastructure that can grow to take responsibility for so many other forms of data rather than it being a siloed infrastructure for PACS and VNA. And it may well have key advantages that solve some of your challenges in other areas of the data management requirements. Excuse me. So Alessandro referred to the multi-protocol access and the fact that Qumulo delivers the performance on top of the HPE platform. What I want to leave you with is the fact that this platform is, totally data ready, highly performant, very well matched to the Qumulo solution. In fact, we have a process that allows us to size your requirements so that, the Qumulo and the HPE components are perfectly matched. And this will allow you to store a vast amount of data and give you extreme visibility and control over that data so that you're never in the dark as to how the how secure and available the data is and how the infrastructure is performing for you. And this solution can be delivered as physical on-premises servers or virtual servers. And I will cover the GreenLake cloud option as well in a moment. And basically, it's a software-defined architecture. So you're using industry standard hardware with the Qumulo solution, and we can switch and upgrade the hardware underneath the Qumulo solution without interruption of, without requiring a forklift style upgrade. And of course, we've got the security component I've mentioned, and I won't go into every single detail, but you can see that from a hardware perspective, we are covering security, basic criteria, the supply chain perspective of security with the physical bezel lock and configuration and so on, and then obviously down to the drive level protection of data. So you have both in configuration of the platform options for security, and then configuration and implementation of the platform at site, multiple options to extend your the security of your data. So next, I'd like to cover GreenLake for Qumulo. And for those of you who are not familiar, GreenLake is the all-encompassing cloud and supply model that Hewlett Packard Enterprise offers. And so basically what we're offering is an environment that gives you incredible flexibility in consumption models and flexibility in operation and placement of data. And our own stats and a number of independent studies have shown that we massively reduce the time to deployment And that's not just initial deployment, but that is redeployment in your environment. We massively reduce the risk of unplanned downtime because of the way the whole solution is architected. And there is also a reduction in total cost of ownership because of the way the infrastructure is managed and provisioned and charged. Basically, we take multiple complex facets of the management of your infrastructure and simplify it through the delivery model and the management model. And it all turns out to be a simplified infrastructure and a reduced cost. So key to this is obviously the simplification of the operations by utilizing the cloud console. And it's the same interface that you would use if you wish to manage your infrastructure on site, on premises, or manage multiple sites and our cloud environment. But basically, same interface, regardless of where you place the infrastructure or the data. We leverage all the various APIs and everything is managed through the same interface. And basically what it provides you with is a simplistic cloud-like environment to have overview of your infrastructure and to use the term Alessandro used, tranquility of operation. And key to this is the model which we utilize to provision. So GreenLake can be consumed on or can be billed and managed financially on a capital expenditure or an operating expense model. But the key is we basically provision what you need plus a buffer. So you specify or we agree together the capacity of storage environment required, and that is what you are delivered and you pay for. But we have in readiness a buffer that allows almost instantaneous scale at demand to cover any eventuality. And that buffer is held but not charged. And then as you move into the buffer, you are then subsequently charged for the usage of that capacity. And this can work the other way as well. So if you for whatever reason reduce the requirements of storage capacity, then we charge for less. We basically reduce the cost per capacity. So it's a flexible consumption model, but with a safety buffer that ensures that there's always an extra layer of capacity there. So if you combine the Qumulo utilization of space with the buffer, you're pretty much protected, whatever the eventuality, the surprise implementation of a new facility with brand new implemented packs or whatever it be that generates an instant extra capacity of data, you're covered. And I think we covered the whole security subject, but this can be delivered at layers, with increasing levels of granularity down to the encrypted drives. But we also cover the basics of the bring your own key and so on. So the options are there. You choose how that is to be managed and secured. So I think. As you can see, today we've attempted to address the challenge of delivering infrastructure that manages and supports your delivery of care. We're able to adhere to and flex with your IT strategy, and there are a tremendous number of features in there that are designed to reduce the overhead of operations and administration and control costs. And we believe we do that through the deployment of leading technology within a powerful partnership and with that flexible delivery model. So you get the best option for solution, you get an extremely efficient working partnership, and as I say, you choose the cost model and the consumption model optimal to your requirements. With that, I'd like to open it up to Q&A.
Well, Nicholas, Alessandro, thank you both for a wonderful presentation. And I want to first remind our audience that you can continue to submit questions in the Q&A window to the right of the media player. You've got some questions already, and here's our first. How does this solution address the wide range of file size and how rapidly data volume grows?
Thank you for that question, because Qumulo HP and HPE have engineered together since day zero the system in order to cope exactly with that kind of need. It doesn't matter if you are dealing with very small files, with gigantic files like imaging files. It doesn't matter about the starting point of your solution. You can have a very small requirement at the very beginning, but then you can expand and grow as like we are shown with the concept of Lego blocks. And then we can basically address your needs in an almost infinite way, right? We are not scared. We have customers that are hosting billions of files on their Qumulo HPE clusters and size of like 50 terabyte a single file. This is not in a healthcare, it's in a different vertical, but they are using ridiculously big files. As an extreme example, if you have a 1 petabyte HP Qumulo cluster, you can have one single file as big as 1 petabyte. No problem. The platform has been engineered exact for that.
Nicholas, anything to add on that?
No, I think Alessandro covered it. I mean, essentially, we've yet to have the complete solution tested beyond its limits. The technology, both the software and the platform, is designed to scale to where you need. And we have some extremely large implementations while retaining manageability and cost, but most importantly, performance.
Fantastic. I think that's such an important thing to discuss, especially since, it seems like imaging has gone so far beyond like the traditional like radiology and cardiology. There are so many other specialties that require imaging now, even dermatology. So that's great to know that they have that kind of scalability.
Yes, and in fact, I personally have been involved with opportunities or discussion with opportunities within Europe, where the provider has been planning to embark on implementation of digital pathology. And they were most worried not about the technology and the process for implementing it, but for the potential for growth of data and management of that data and securing it, because implementing it at multiple sites would have suddenly ballooned their capacity. So the infrastructural cost and feasibility are critical to the success of projects like that.
Fantastic. We got another question here. And this question is about imaging infrastructure cost. How can this solution help address that cost and control it?
Yes, I can take that one. The critical component to that is the only charged for what you use. I mean, if you wish to go and buy a vast implementation of the infrastructure outright capital, then it's your choice. But essentially, the GreenLake model offers you various versions of contract that designs and implements infrastructure optimal to your current data requirements for the imaging or DNA or whatever. But with that model that has a agreed and visible buffer, so that you're charged for the capacity that you're utilizing. And then when that begins to grow, we have the buffer pre-provisioned and ready to release and make available to you. And at that point, you get charged for the greater capacity. This avoids having to plan forward and provision sufficient capacity for projected growth, and therefore pay for capacity that you're not yet using. And then B, also removes the potential hiccup in not projecting the growth accurately. So, for example, in the instance of suddenly adding a project to implement digital pathology, that then implicates much more rapid growth of the data. And therefore, if you had planned a N-year strategy around your traditional storage arrays or your storage environment with a certain amount of capacity headroom, you're likely to blow through it, and you would be looking at implementing extra nodes or whatever. With us, we're provisioning the capacity, and as it grows, we can just grow it for you, and you're charged as you use it.
Absolutely. Alessandro, anything to add?
Yes, because there is another component of cost which is not usually mentioned, which is the operational effort to keep the system up and running, right? One of the keywords that came from one of those leading PACS vendor was that the Cumulo system together with HP is extremely easy to manage and operate at any scale, right? So the operational effort and cost of maintaining the solution is extremely low. Typically, when we go together in front of a customer and I show in an half an hour how a Qumulo cluster is managed, well, the customer is a little bit shocked because they say, hey, is this really all that I need to do in order to manage it? And the answer is yes, the learning curve is very, very flat, right? So the IT teams don't have to spend a lot of effort, right, in studying hundreds and hundreds of pages. They don't have to spend hours and hours babysitting the system. One of my favorite quotes from one of our joint customers is, hey, yes, we have installed the Qumulo, we configured it, and I forgot because it works.
Yeah, yeah. And Alessandro, the other point, of course, and from a cost perspective, is your utilization of capacity. It may seem very simple, but from a cost perspective, being able to use that extra 10 or 15% or whatever it be over a competitor's offering means you're using something that you're paying for instead of not using something which you're paying for. If you are limited to an 85% usage by capacity, then you're still buying the 100%. You're still paying for the 100%. You're only utilizing 85%, whereas with the Qumulo on HPE solution, you're using close to 100. 10% can be a lot factored into the total cost.
Yeah, especially at the scale. When we are talking about multiple petabytes or tens of petabytes, like we have some installations and so on. Yes, that can be a pretty costly, let's say, choice.
Definitely, especially when margins are the way they are. Every little bit counts.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's the next question. What if we have changes in our cloud strategy? How can the solution deal with that?
Absolutely. Because again, from day zero, we have engineered the system to be able to run seamlessly on premise. We co-engineered the solution together, HPE and Qumulo, but also we can natively run in the cloud. So we can truly enable a hybrid approach. And I mentioned that this is a future-proof choice, right? Because right now, maybe your top management is 100% on premise. That's perfectly fine. But they are thinking ahead, maybe 5 years, and they want to start exploring the journey through the cloud. Well, with us, they're perfectly fine and future-proof because they can just instantiate a Qumulo cluster in any of their major cloud provider of choice, and then wrap the data seamlessly, move the data seamlessly, no problem.
Nicholas, you have anything to add to that?
I think Alessandro covered it. Yep, portable licenses, basically.
Yeah, that flexibility is so important.
Yeah, in actual fact, I did fail to mention during the relevant section of the presentation that HPE's GreenLake can also be provided as a cloud or as a service model with the advantage of significant administrative services behind the scenes. And we've worked extensively with Qumulo to build joint offerings, both to deliver to customer site and on an as-a-service basis, the combined offering of our platform, our services, Qumulo and their services.
Looks like we have time for one more question. How far can you scale with this solution?
Wow, that's a pretty complex topic. I also had the pleasure to be in charge of the security of my two hospitals. So Nick mentioned in his part of the presentation that HPE has a strongly foundational security embedded in the platform, right? They secure basically every hardware component. They secure the BIOS, they secure the BIOS upgrade, they secure everything from a hardware perspective, right? And they use a zero trust approach. On the Qumulo level, right, on the software level, we protect the data by allowing you to store up to 40,000 snapshots per cluster, which is a tremendous amount of snapshots. It's the recommended limit, but we have some funky customers that came back to us and said, hey, look, I have like 80,000 snapshots on my system and it keeps working. And we say, all right, it works. You're the customer, then it's up to you. But the official limit is 40,000, right? We encrypt all the data at rest. So we are in compliance with GDPR and all the local relevant regulations in terms of data protection. The access is performed through dual factor authentication, right? So you can authenticate the administrator using dual factor authentication. You have the possibility to lock the snapshot so they cannot be deleted under any condition. And this is your last line of defense, just in case someone compromises the account of the administrator. So we do a lot of things. Probably to this question will take up to an hour, but you get the point. The solution is built to be secure, right, in each component, being it the software component of Qumulo or the hardware component of HPE.
I see. And Nicholas, anything to add to that?
No, an awful lot of the security is as a result of Qumulo technology, but underpinning that is the extensive spread of security features standard in our platform. As I said, from the from the supply chain, so that nothing can be interfered with during the original supply and implementation of any hardware on premises, and then also from a data perspective, right down to the FIPS compliant encrypted drives as an option. There are multiple layers. There are features in the management layer and so on. So within reason, we can match and meet whatever the provider's requirements are and expectations are for secure data.
That's great to know. Looks we have time for one more question. How far, I think you kind of touched on this before, how far can the HPE with Qumulo solutions scale?
Oh, that's lovely. We can start with 4 nodes, so very small. And by the way, those 4 nodes can be very small. The bare minimum size of a Cumulo cluster is 80 terabyte. Yes, we do have customers that are in very remote locations. They are very small hospitals, but we have customers that are gigantic. So they won't have 4 nodes. They have like in the range of 50, 60, up to 100 and more nodes in order to accommodate tens of petabytes. The maximum limit in terms of nodes is 265 and over 100 petabytes available in a single namespace. So basically, we can address your storage needs for the next 20, 30 years, probably until quantum storage will come into play, I think.
That sounds like it's a lot. It's a long time off. Nicholas, how about you? Anything to add?
Yes, actually, so I chose to feature the 4000 series of Apollo and Electra platforms for Qumulo. We do, as Alessandro alluded to, have options that are much smaller. We have been involved with very large projects. An example would be let's just say a national database for imaging, a single national database for imaging. The requirement there was for the ability to store a common copy centrally, but to operate everything down to very small local clinics. And so we needed, an implementation on a smaller platform, which we were able to deliver. So you have the whole scale from very small, local clinic, right up to very large provider sites, all interconnected if necessary. So scale is not a problem, up or down.
Excellent. Well, at this time, we do have to wrap up. Nicholas, Alessandro, thank you again for all of your insights.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having us today.
Thanks. And once again, we want to thank our sponsor, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, for their support of this webinar. Now, for our audience, don't forget to take our brief evaluation at the conclusion of today's event and share your thoughts with us. As a reminder, you will receive an email within 24 hours to rewatch the on-demand recording of today's session, and it'll be available in the HIMSS Resource Hub for a limited time. So feel free to come back and watch at any time. Thanks, everyone, and have a terrific rest of your day.